delegate, if I remember right.
Good Shabbos, God.
Exodus what? Yes.
How you feeling about this?
What section? What section? See what it is. Yitro 18. What section are we on? 19?
We've got our daughter with us. Hi. Hello, Diana.
Nice to meet you. I'm Jamie Cooking. Nice to see you. I wore a dress for the bar mitzvah. I have no cooking place. Okay. Boker Tov. Check. Hello at home. Wherever one may be.
They're there.
They're there. I know. Jeremy always tells me they're there.
Those yours?
Okay, welcome and Shabbat Shalom. As you see, Rabbi Barris is not here. He is in New Orleans visiting his daughter. Rabbi Greengrass is in Guatemala with our Teen Justice Fellows, with our with our year's director, Tamara Dannenfeld. And so we're all in different places, but we're all doing the same, bringing Torah, bringing Shabbat. So, yeah, no matter where we are, that's what we do. Although, no, Rabbi Barris may not actually be bringing Shabbat. He may be sleeping late in New Orleans, but whatever. We all get that chance. You know, there was that book, Saturday the Rabbi Slept Late. It was this, it was a, right, wasn't that a series? Yeah. Detective series, okay. So, we didn't sleep late. We got up extra early today, and here I am. Well, it's Shabbat morning. We'll start with our blessing, a special thanks before our Kiddush. We're going to do a Kiddush with intention for the 3 hostages that came home today. May they all come home soon and alive and good health. We're very, very aware of our family in Israel who are suffering and celebrating at the exact same moment. And that we take that with us as we bless God this Shabbat morning. So here we go. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. B'nei uvein b'nei Yisrael b'nei Yisrael le'olam le'olam. Different traditions sing it differently. B'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. We hear it today. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz v'shamru Bnei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash shavat vayinafash shavat vayinafash v'shamru Bnei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pori hagafen Amen.
Summer grape juice.
Love that grape juice. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen. Punctuate that blessing with my coffee. Yitro, we are in the book of Shemot, the book of Exodus this morning. We're up to Parashat Yitro. Jethro, named after Moses' father-in-law, because the opening section of the portion talks about how Yitro offered advice to Moses, and I love this part, and he accepted it, and he listened. It was advice on how to delegate and share responsibilities. You hear that, Alex? Yeah. That's funny. Alex asked, my husband asked, should I go to Torah study? Do you need me to be there? And I said, no, I need you to take care of the dog and our daughter's cat instead. But if he's watching, he was not one to take his father-in-law's advice so much. But that's an aside, Paul, but thank you for sharing that. We're on chapter 19. So we are talking about the Israelites coming to Mount Sinai, getting ready for the revelation, and all that entails. We're going to be working like on the first 6 verses or so. That's it of the portion, and seeing what all our friends, the rabbis, have to say about that. So let's see. How do I want us to do this? I would say let's read a little bit of the text, just a few verses, I think through verse 6. And then we'll get into I probably prepared too many texts, and we'll see how many we get to. The idea, as I put at the top, so I won't forget our direction this morning, Torah is freedom, Torah is service. So think of the Israelites leaving the yoke of slavery to the Ol HaMitzvot, the yoke of mitzvot. And it is explained in this, it is, the metaphor is the same way, or the simile is the same idea. There is a yoke of slavery, and there is a yoke of mitzvot. Now, the idea is, I talked about a little bit last night, how is that yoke positive? And that yoke is positive because of that yoke is really a yoke of freedom. It's hard to fathom that something that ties us, mitzvot, is really freedom. But that's what the rabbis are going to be saying this morning. So let's read. Do we start, Bobby, or no? Norman, you start. And why don't you read chapter 19, verses 1 through 6, and then we'll jump into our text.
On the 3rd new moon after the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt, on that very day, they entered the wilderness of Sinai. Having journeyed from Rephidim, they entered the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness. Israel encamped there in front of the mountain, and Moses went up to God. The Eternal One called to him from the mountain, saying, "Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob, and declare to the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on the eagle's wings and brought you to me. Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possessions among all the peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine, but you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to just break down the meaning of those 6 verses to see what our friends, the sages, were sharing with us and what it means as we peel back the layers of Torah. So I'm starting with a fun midrash. I think I have a couple of cute midrashim in here. Some you may know. And because the midrashim are the Agadic midrashim, the ones that tell stories that are not focused on law, like the ones I'm going to share with you this morning, a couple of them, are to broaden our scope of what's going on, to give us some, as we say in Hebrew or Yiddish, some tam, some taste, some flavor, a deeper flavor, a broader flavor, a greater depth, an insight than what's just on the text. So we start in Exodus 19. On the 3rd new moon, the Israelites had gone forth from the land of Egypt. On that very day, they entered the wilderness of Sinai. The Midrash is going to explain who, what, when, why then. Edith, I think you are reading this Midrash. We are on the first page where it says Midrash.
Said
Rabbi
Isaac, the Israelites merited receiving the Torah immediately after going forth from Egypt. But the Holy One, blessed be He, reasoned thus: my children have not yet regained their vigor. Literally, the brightness of my children hath not yet come. They have gone forth from mortar and bricks and are not able to receive the Torah immediately. To what may this be compared? To a king whose son has just recovered from sickness. Said his tutor to him, let your son go to school. Said the king, my son has not regained his vigor, yet you say, let your son go back to school. But rather let my son enjoy 2 or 3 months of good food and drink and convalesce, and after that he may go back to school. Similarly, the Holy One, blessed be He, said, my children have not regained their vigor. From the bondage of mortar and bricks have they gone forth. And should I then give them the Torah? But rather let my children enjoy for 2 or 3 months the manna, the well, and the quail, and afterwards I shall give them the Torah. When? In the 3rd month. Exodus 19:1.
That's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so what I like about this midrash, the mountain is about to shake and quake. People are going to be really frightened about encountering God and getting the Torah, getting these commandments, and yet the midrash is showing us this really compassionate, fatherly, loving side of God as we open up this section. That no, you have to give my people a chance to rest, a chance to convalesce, and then they'll be ready. The idea that and this morning when we see hostages, this whole period of hostages coming out of Gaza, and we see what they look like, this midrash really, really spoke to me. That how can we expect to go from one phase of our life without another, without some reflection, without some rest, without some really just being fortified again, body and soul. And the Midrash is recognizing this right away, right from the beginning. Comments, questions on this? Okay. So, next. I want to look at this part in Hebrew because the Hebrew is what is the part that's the issue. I'll look at the Hebrew first. Exodus 19, verse 2. Vayis'u, plural, having journeys from Rephidim. Vayavo'u, plural, Midbar Sinai. Oh, look, I'm prepared. Here we go. That's so much better. Vayachanu, camped. Plural, 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 plural. They, and then we have Vayichan Sham Yisrael, singular. Having journeyed from Rephidim, as Norman read, they entered the wilderness of Sinai and camped there. Another midrash. And this is a little hard to read. So start with the midrash Tanchuma Buber Yitro. On the third new moon, this text related. You don't have to read all of the citations.
Okay,
but
start here
just-
with the Holy One here.
Yeah.
All right. The Holy One wanted to give Torah to Israel at the time that Israel came forth from Egypt, but they were disagreeing with each other and were always saying, "Let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt." What is written in Exodus 13:20, they journeyed from Sukkoth and camped at Etham, because they were journeying in dissension and camping in dissension. When they came to Rephidim, they all became harmonious and formed a single group. And where is it shown that they formed a single group? Where it is stated, and Israel, and that's your singular, encamped there before the mountain. The plural form of encamped is not written here, but encamped in the singular. The Holy One said, "All of the Torah is peace. So to whom shall I give it? To a people that loves peace."
Okay, thank you. So now we have two different midrashim on when Israel, the people of Israel, will get Torah. One, when they're rested. Two, when they get along with each other. So two different ideas. They deserved it. They were supposed to get it right away, but the first time they had to still get their vigor back, and the second time they had to get along. And we see that they weren't getting along from the text before. Moses, you brought us to the desert to kill us, et cetera, et cetera. What are the Egyptians going to say? Which I always say is, I hear my mother reading the Rockland County Journal News whenever there was a Jewish name in something that was wrong. What would the say? What are they going to say about this? What are the Egyptians going to say? And now they're getting along. So two different understandings of the time they are ready to receive Torah. All right, questions, comments? Okay. Yes, you mean, where's the other microphone? Here, Victor. Yeah, thanks. Thank God, because I can't really stay in one place the whole day.
It's just a technical point that is in the third month, but it wasn't yet 3 months. It was at the beginning of the third month that they arrived, because to receive the Torah, it was in Shavuot, was 7 weeks. So not 12 weeks.
Right.
So we were arriving just at the beginning of the third month, after just a little bit before Shavuot.
Thank you. Right, so just the beginning, so really not so much respite. So Rabbi Barris loved the section, the next verse is about bringing them on eagle's wings. It was for the Philadelphia Eagles, and lo and behold, all of those midrashim proved correct. They flew the highest, all of that. So, and here it is. So last week he gave you a preview of the text, and we're going to be playing with that text a little bit. So the next two verses, Exodus 19, 4 and 5. So far we see Israelites should get Torah, but they have to be ready for it. They have to be ready. Yes, Diana.
Okay. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. Now then, if you will obey me faithfully and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine.
Great. So we have a couple of things happening here, right? We have carrying on eagle's wings. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at a little bit on Am Segula, a treasured possession, and we're going to look at bringing you to me. Those three things are all important in these just two verses. So let's see what Rashi says upon eagle's wings.
Upon eagle's wings, as an eagle which bears its fledglings upon its wings. Scripture uses this metaphor because all other birds place their young between their feet, since they are afraid of another bird that flies above them. But the eagle fears none except man, apprehending that perhaps he may cast an arrow at it. since no bird can fly above it. Therefore he places its young, upon its wings, saying, better that the arrow should pierce me than my young. I too, said God, did thus. And the angel of God journeyed, etc. And he came between the camp of Egypt, etc. And the Egyptians were casting arrows and stone missiles, and the cloud caught these.
So we have another idea of protection, but I want to take a few moments to hear what we have to say about metaphor, because the rabbis have a lot to say, and other scholars, about the use of a metaphor. So first of all, why do we use metaphor? Why would the Torah use metaphor? This is an interactive part. I know Rabbi Barish doesn't love interactive parts, but that's the fun of having 3 different personalities. So what's the point of using a metaphor? Hillary, I knew you were going to say. Oh, you weren't? Thank you, but take this. Hang on. I was just breathing. Oh, sorry. Thank you, I voluntold you.
So that we can relate to it better.
Okay, so one reason is that we can relate to it better. We may get a better understanding because, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. What else do we know about metaphors? What do we know? We have too many doctors and lawyers in here. We need a couple more creatives.
Language is always symbolic. And what you do with a metaphor is you refer to other symbols, a great depth of, including visual symbols, and apply that to written words.
So, metaphor is symbol. So Alfred's saying, can a metaphor be translated? I don't mean from language to language. But if 2 people read the same metaphor, do they necessarily understand the same thing? No. It allows us to personalize it. You can relate to it. It's a symbol for something else. So this is really an important point when we read Torah and we find sometimes there are metaphors like this, upon eagle's wings. So we don't really understand what it is. Some people say, oh, the eagle's the highest, lifting people up. Maybe it's the fastest. Maybe it's the one that protects its young the most. But we have this image of God doing the stuff that eagles do. So it's an awesome image. And it means, I think I only gave us a couple, but we could have spent weeks just reading all of the commentators' ideas on what it means on eagle's wings. I wanted to emphasize that this morning. At the foot of page 2, going from eagle's wings to the next part of that verse, you have seen. Genya, you're going to read? I ran out. I think I made. All right, I guess we have to up the number of copies.
Ye have seen the vengeance that I executed upon the Egyptians on your behalf, and that I bore you out of Egypt as if you were carried on the wings of eagles. For an eagle flies higher in the air than any other bird. All birds are afraid of him, and he fears no bird. I bore you on eagle's wings. Moses employed a similar metaphor later on when he said, as an eagle that stirs up her nest, that is, it slowly leads its young. Moses similarly referred to the clouds when he said, spreadeth abroad her wings.
Okay, so the other idea of thinking is not that nothing else is afraid of an eagle. And at the same time, like the 2 midrashim, we see some kind of compassion, understanding of who you're dealing with. The eagle gently, slowly stirs its nest and gets its young to fly. Yes, Jeff.
I think also it's that they wanted to feel, in order for God to, they saw the might, and God can say, I'm the one that created the world, and say, but he actually said, I'm the one that took you out of Egypt, out of bondage. And so what he was doing was then making it more personal and bringing it to his people so they would understand, and it was his compassionate side and also his intent that these are special people and they needed to understand that to feel special.
Thank you. The idea that I brought you out of Egypt, right? I've heard you, I've brought you out. Look what I've done to the Egyptians. And there's a lot of discussion. I didn't do this to the Egyptians because necessarily I was punishing them, but I was, says God. It was to show you. It was for your sake, because I love you. So we're getting these really, if we look, very intimate feelings that God has for Am Sugolah, his treasured people. A very kind of warmth, protective, not just retribution, but really the opposite.
There's even a deeper level to your question.
Hold it closer.
To the question
Yeah.
of what is a symbol, there's a concept called the non-universality of symbols, meaning they mean different things to different people. The eagle, which you're suggesting is a very good symbol for Jews, was a very different symbol for Rome and for Nazi Germany.
Right.
So it's, again, a great example of the non-universality of symbols.
Beautiful. That really makes my point. Thank you. That's because you're a photographer. You see that. So, right, so for Rome and the Nazis, what did the eagle represent? Power and strength. The eagle is for Ibn Ezra representing some power and strength, but we seem to get more than the power and strength, the animal that is going to protect and lift you out, protect and redeem. Not conquer and crush, but protect and redeem. It's a very different idea. Eileen? You're welcome.
So this is like a conundrum question kind of thing. Where do we fall between the absolute meaning of Torah and the fact that Torah can be interpreted individually by each person individually based on how they see the world, and when they hear a metaphor, you're not going to understand it the same way. So where do we fall in our understanding of Torah? Because isn't it absolute in many ways?
Thank you. I love that you asked that question. I count on Eileen to bring these fundamental questions to Torah, because some people come from a more fundamental reading of the text. So she asks, what? What are we supposed to do with this? What are we supposed to do with metaphors? How come the Torah has metaphors? This is why I took the time to discuss what's a metaphor. How come? Isn't there just one way? The answer? No, it's sort of, right? So that makes some people uncomfortable, but even the most Orthodox understand. This is why the Orthodox go through all of these texts. They try in certain areas to drill down into where's the yes and where's the no, but Torah only has, we're dealing with a bunch of yes and no's today because we're talking about the Revelation and Ten Commandments, but Ten Commandments is really the third triennial, so I tried not to jump into it. Sometimes people were trying to drill down. Give me a yes, give me a no, tell me what to do. But the depth of Torah, which is how to be a human being, will tell you what to do, but there's room in that spectrum of telling us what to do. 70 faces of God. Thank you, Ed. Victor.
So when we left Egypt, we were like little eagle chicks, and we couldn't fly on our own. So we needed the eagle to carry us. So it took several weeks, like the same amount of weeks, to arrive to Sinai for now us to get like our wings to be able to fledge out of the nest ourselves. So we needed the eagle to carry us first.
We needed to be carried first. Thank you. Yeah.
7? An interesting number.
So 7, right? We 7 days of the week, the 6 days of creation, we rested on the 7th day. 7th is a time of a number of whole, Sheva Brachot, 7 wedding blessings. It's a number of wholeness and being complete. So from Egypt to Shavuot, from Pesach to Shavuot is 7 weeks. It's all apart. Genya.
Just a quick comment that I'm surprised when we talk about symbols, what the eagle symbolizes. And you spoke about Germany. Well, the bald eagle is a symbol of the United States.
Yeah.
And I believe that it comes to represent strength and
freedom.
And freedom. So there you go. We have adopted the same image for our own identity here in this country.
Thank you. So, right, there's another eagle. We think of a bald eagle. So, like many of you, I've done a couple of cruises to Alaska, and you get in a little Zodiac, and you are looking for those bald eagles. And, by the time you see them, they're gone. But that if you want to see the bald eagles. You want to see, because it's higher, because it's stronger, because it's faster, because it represents something that is completely free. And rare. Maybe that's an idea of freedom being rare. Okay, so, sorry. Oh yeah, you go to where you could probably see bald eagles sometimes.
Jews are asked to believe in a God they cannot see. We're the only people who have a God that we cannot see. Everybody has, Jesus or Allah or something that they can see. So it helps people to have the eagle, to have something visible that they can think of, as well as the God whom they cannot see.
So Edith is saying that, thank you, that people need some kind of metaphor to look at God's attributes, God's traits, and see them in something. So sometimes different forms of Christianity, I love going to Russian Orthodox. No, I don't love it, but I have been because I have been among Russian Orthodox and Georgian Orthodox, and they like their icons. The icons are not gods, but the icons will represent a trait of something divine. So, thank you. Somebody else? Annabella's reading. We're on the top of page 3. HaKatav, HaKabbalah. This is a guy, he doesn't like Reform Judaism. But he has a bunch of spiritual, interesting things to say. Top of page 3.
And how I carried you, literally bore you up. Onkelos translates ve'esa as though it were asiya etchem, visually, vatlit itchon, and I made you travel on eagle's wings. He adapted the expression in a manner that is consonant with the respect due to the Most High. See Rashi. According to my understanding, this carrying has nothing to do with carrying a burden, but really the elevation spoken of here is spiritual, just as I will raise my hands to heaven. And the use of eagle is because it flies higher than any other bird, as it is written, as the eagle flies to heaven. If you fly high like the eagle, then you will reach peaks and heights and raise all things to heaven. And the height here intends of the highest high. The Blessed One raised Bnei Israel up at the time of the Exodus by directing all their affairs in a miraculous manner, splitting the sea and giving manna and so on, all miraculous things out of ordinary from what the natural world behaves. It is fitting to point out that their raising was above the ways of the world by using the idea of carrying on eagle's wings, as to say, I raised you even higher than an eagle could have flown.
Nice metaphor.
if he would know. So it has nothing to do with physically carrying. It is all the metaphor of a spiritual uplift. How do you uplift somebody spiritually? Not only do you redeem them, but you redeem them with these miracles that bring you closer to God. And when we get to Mount Sinai and receive the commandments, well, then you will be even one step closer, a spiritual raising up. Comments, ideas? Okay. Thank you. Well, we passed the microphone. All right, so now we're going to shift a little bit from eagles to brought you to me. Joe, can you read Exodus 19:4 and then that Rashi?
You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me, for mitzvot, for spiritual advancement, to a physical location.
Because, well, here's another idea. I'm bringing you, so you've seen what I've done to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. So he brought you to me for the A, B, and C is my addition. Brought you to me for mitzvot.
Via,
For spiritual advancement and to a physical location. So three different ideas of brought you to me. Read Rashi.
V'yava et hatkem ali, and I brought you unto myself, explain this as the Targum does, and I have brought you near to my service.
Okay, thank you. So now we're getting Torah is freedom, Torah is service, A being the mitzvot. So what does it mean to be brought to me? We're going to hear three ideas. One is going to be God's service. Thank you. And that's really the direction that we're going to take. But when we break down the text, because I think the text doesn't mean the same. It means the same thing, and it means and other things. And other things. Okay, so let's see. So we have Or HaChaim. We're going to look at two things that he's done. Ooh, we're early. And see about mitzvot, spiritual advancement, like the Kabbalah just said, and this is just from you to me, bringing you to the mountain, where I'm going to share these things with Moses. Hillary, you're up.
God also hinted at what is spelled out in greater detail by the author of the Haggadah Shel Pesach, who says, if God had not taken our forefathers out of Egypt when he did, both we and our forefathers would have remained there enslaved to Pharaoh, etc. The reason that God brought us out at the time was in order not to let us sink still deeper into the moral morass that was Egypt, a depth that we could not have rehabilitated ourselves from, ever. God therefore rescued us and brought us to a holy place. We have to understand the word Eli? Sorry, I can't, there's no vowels, I can't read it.
You did very well.
Whatever. As the contrast to the deep moral abyss that was Egypt.
Okay, so now we have, oh, look at this. Three different colors. Let's see if these are new. So now we have, all these new markers, we have Egypt, and we're going up to Sinai. No snow. We're going up to Sinai, but this is going to be the abyss, and we're going out. So here we have Egypt as the moral abyss. And if you stay there any longer, friends, we're not going to be able to change you. Who wasn't able to change in Egypt? Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh. And at the end, not only that God had hardened Pharaoh's heart was hardened. Pharaoh himself couldn't change. It just becomes too much. That's spiraling down. Okay, so that's number one. The idea that you have to come out of there, be an absolute lot of cherished possession. You cannot stay in that moral abyss of Egypt. Didn't mention there slavery. just mentioned you'll never be able to come out of it. So it's a whole different approach. Number 2, Sherry.
And I brought you close to me. In this verse, God reminded the Jewish people that he had taken the first step to bring them close to him. This was very remarkable since we have explained repeatedly that the normal procedure of making progress of a spiritual nature is for man to take the first step. In taking the first step to elevate Israel to a higher spiritual level, God had demonstrated his love for the people in an extraordinary manner. In our mundane life, we also observe that the lower classes that make attempts to establish some contact with the higher classes, not vice versa.
All right. So this is so now he's saying, let's call humans, right? How do we do Teshuvah? We take the first step and we turn around. So humans have to take the step to God. God does not go to humans. Except now, to change, we need to take that first step. But he's saying, no, God is taking that first step this time. Idea, can you read that again? Sherry, read that again where it says the vice versa, and where it's shown that they all formed a single.
In our mundane life, we also always observe that the lower classes make attempts to establish some contact with the higher classes, not vice versa.
Yeah, a little classes. But we know what he's trying to say, that when you're down, you try to go up. Up rarely goes down to bring you.
So it's taking the first step to elevate. Man has to take the first step. If you remember the first landing of the moon, one of the astronauts says, and this is the first step of mankind.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, that latest movie was so great. What is it called? Oh, what's that? What? What was the latest movie about the Apollo? Yeah, Fly Me to the Moon. What a great, huh? That was so cool. Did everybody see Fly Me to the Moon? Okay, you need to see that. Did everybody see the Bob Dylan movie? Okay. Two things you must see, especially the Bob Dylan movie. All right. So we have a number of ideas of bringing the eagles. Now we have a number of ideas of what does it mean to bring you to me. It's spiritually. I got to take you out of the mess. I'm going to go back and pull you up. Usually you should want to come up, but I'm going to have to go get you. Nine souls. Whose turn?
And I brought you to me, to this place, where the entire people will experience a direct encounter with God, an unprecedented event in history.
Okay, so now we have another, thank you, broad idea of the people. So when people are reading Torah text, and throughout much of history, and certainly when people start to become literary, be able to read, what's one of the revolutionary points, if we get to the Ten Commandments, we'll see that, is that this is now addressed to everybody. Right? There's not the intermediary, but there is the people. All of the people, we say it again on Yom Kippur, you all are standing here this day, and here it's unprecedented. Unprecedented in history, and unprecedented in the later history where people are going to be reading this. Later history, people are going to be reading this and they're going to see what all the people heard it. It's not even the people, the lower people in society, the uneducated people in society, the laborers, the serfs, the peasants. They too are able to participate in this. powerless, and it included all people in society. Gave protection to the powerless and vulnerable, and spoke to everyone, almost directly. We're going to see, it's really for next year's portion, but you read through the whole portion that it got a little too much to be direct, and people were afraid. Okay, the last one, then we're going to do another fun exercise. Torah Aro.
I have brought you to me, to the location where my glory is manifest. This mountain, my presence, is presently in residence.
So Torah is saying, I'm going to bring you to me, and you are actually going to come to see me. So let's look at this. Torah means freedom. You're going to, one, come to me spiritually, come to me in service, in both. You're going to come to me spiritually. You're going to connect. You're going to cleave to me. It's not completely dissimilar to service, but it is a little different. And three, you're going to come to me physically. You're physically going to be in my presence. And what is this going to take, according to the other midrashim? It's going to take a time to convalesce, and it's going to take the ability to be together, and this is why, of course, we have Na'aseh v'Nishma, we will do and we will hear, because this is not going to happen unless you are unified. You can't get mitzvot, you can't do service unless you're unified in second Jeff. You can't raise up to me spiritually unless you're certified, and you're not going to be in my presence.
So I think at this phase, no one is above the other. They're all equal. And at this point, before they go here in Revelation, they have to be not only cleansed emotionally, physically, spiritually, they have to be, where each one has to be a blank vessel in order to receive the words. So like they say, Moses was the most humble. So they say you cannot receive if you're so full of yourself. In order to receive God and be full of God, you cannot be full of yourself.
So Jeff brings in a little bit of musar, this kind of humility, that unless we have a certain level of humility, and the people were all, they were equal before God, but they weren't the same, right? Moses had already appointed judges, and there were princes, so there were people that were, it was a hierarchical society, and yet, before God, they're going to be the same. And so you have to have that level of humility, like Moses is described as not only the greatest prophet, but the most humble person.
So if we believe that the king in Nineveh was Pharaoh, then however deep your personal moral abyss is, the worst guy, the worst person, the worst it is, there's hope to get to God as long as you get out of that abyss. Even Pharaoh did, if we believe that the king of Nineveh was in fact Pharaoh.
So there's a midrash of the king of Nineveh, right? That in the book of Jonah went to tell the Ninevites, you have to repent, and they did repent, even the king, and so that shows a repentance without this physical removal, and that there is an opportunity for repentance. And we do hold mostly that's true, right? That everybody can do teshuvah. That is a concept, although, we're not sure. So we hold that it's possible, but we also hold that the really, 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 really evil guys can't do it. It's possible, it's laid out, but they won't or they can't do it. Hang on.
God gave them 3 months to come out of their slavery and be prepared to receive Torah. And looking ahead, we know what happened. They weren't ready to receive Torah. And
That's the issue with the golden calf, you're saying.
yes, and they looked to the symbols of the gods that Egypt created to save them. They didn't have enough faith. Each experience that God gave them of a miracle, they had short-term memory loss.
Okay.
They did not recall. They didn't recall the Red Sea. They didn't recall the 10th plague. They didn't recall any of the events that God brought them out of Mitzrayim to receive Torah. And maybe God was wrong. Maybe we weren't ready at the time to receive Torah.
So we're jumping ahead here, right?
I'll accept Joe's explain.
So it's at this point. This is the flow, right? And it's this crazy flow of you're getting better, you're coming to the mountain, you're getting, and we're all on the same page. Ups. Maybe if Moses came down in 38 days, 34 days, 7 days, they wouldn't have built that calf. So, I mean, that's just it's a great point that we would think we're ready. What does it mean to be ready? God thought they were ready. God thought they were ready, or God, well, of course, according to Torah, God would have known they were building the calf, and then that was going to be another lesson.
Just two things. I was just going to say Pharaoh was very evil, and it was possible for him to repent and whatever. That's what I was going to say before. But now on this, maybe we need the Torah to be ready. Maybe we're not ever ready until we get the Torah, learn from it, and try to be ready.
So Eileen makes the point. The whole point, right, is to come. This freedom comes from the service. This freedom comes from this old mitzvot, the yoke of mitzvot, which, by the way, we are not a part of, right? We are not part of the mitzvah system in this room, the way that the Torah asks us to be. That's something interesting to think about. I mean, we separate the scholarly discussion and make it a religious discussion.
Yeah, I wanted to comment that at a very Peshat level, the fitness of Moses, that every time he went up to God to get the message, then went back down to give it to the people, and then up again to get the second message. And he was 80 years old, and going up, there was no trail in Mount Sinai like they have now. And he was just a very fit man at 80 years old.
Okay. Right, I talked about that a couple of weeks ago when I gave the sermon about Moses being 80 and Aaron 83 and what they were able to do. It was a nice pep talk.
The fact that they were not able to do what they needed to do at that point after reaching Sinai is more of a testament to the depths to which they had fallen while after 210 years in slavery, and that's why it wasn't sufficient for them to reach perfection.
So, thank you. So we have this idea, right? I started the class bringing up Midrashim, which showed God's understanding and compassion for those who have suffered in Egypt. And as much as God showed, if we follow that thinking of those Midrashim, it took longer. It took longer for people to turn around from that slavery, from that deprivation.
What we were referring to were the ups and downs of that progress, and how can they forget the miracles, and how can it made me think of in systems theory, when we are doing family therapy, there's a concept of homeostasis, of homeostasis. So there is a stability in the system, whether it was negative or positive. In this case, we're talking about very deep abuse of these people into slavery, of horrors and so forth. So this process of improvement and rising to a higher spiritual level, but also of reaching to something better, the system would pull them back to what's familiar because that's more comfortable. So it's not that they forget, it's that there's a natural dynamic in change that even when things were worse, at least that were familiar and there's a stability of that. And there is a lot of tug and pull to break through to the next level in change. So it's going to take them 40 years. My God, you know how much money you can make in therapy if you have 40 years worth of...
Spend in therapy over 40 years. So Genya brings, I'm also a big systems gal. I love looking at things through systems. Right? And so here's a system. Our synagogue's a system. The way the clergy works is a system. And this was a system of their lives that they had to break through. And people go back to like the base level of that system. Right, of what they do. Okay. And Torah is going to replace that system with a new system. So it's also very helpful to think that that's why I call it the mitzvot system, is a system of which when we go back to the basis of that system, if we read a little bit forward into chapter 20, we get to the beginning of the Ten Commandments, where we have that baseline, the baseline for this new system of living called mitzvot, or the yoke of the mitzvot, the yoke of the commandments. That's the baseline. And baseline number one, of course, is Anochi, I am God. So we're flipping systems from slavery and deprivation and putting some of this moral abyss, and we're putting in a new system where the one God who took you out, who redeemed you, who tried to give you time to get ready, is this new system. And the new system with things to do, the new system with things not to do, but this is a flip of a system of living. The only ones who they had some idea, right? Because they were B'nai Israel, they had the history of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph. They had some idea. They were different, they were Hebrews, but they're now getting this new system. This system is what really creates freedom, the Torah as a means of freedom, and the Torah as the idea of service, and that's a new system. So, Jews are in a system, if we looked at ourselves as a system, it is a system of service to God and a system of service to each other. Because God has pulled us out and has made us, with giving us this system, an Am Segula, a treasured position, a treasured people. Do we understand what we're saying, system? Okay, awesome. Well, look at that, 9:59. Any other questions? Yeah, one more, Ian. Use the mic.
Someone else mentioned it before, but then we slip, and the first temple is destroyed. Then we start again. The second temple is destroyed. Then we have diaspora. And all of you taught us that it's repetitive, again and again and again. And here we are in 2025, and we still have problems holding on to our beliefs. We're overwhelmed by what's happening, and we're making, not necessarily us here, but yes, all over the world, the very same mistakes that has got us into trouble the first time.
Well, are we making the same mistakes that got us into trouble?
We've been sitting together in Torah Study since August. Yeah. So, what you got? What's news? What about Mormon? Yeah, me too. I mean, I have to go deep now and then go on the road today. Today, just
Así mismo. No se nos olvidan las cosas. Buscando los pejuelos y los...
Enough is enough, yeah, I know. But it's a shot.